Okay, I was talking to somebody about the rules of professional conduct, the due process thing. You don't have due process if you don't have a fair trial. You don't have a fair trial if you don't have effective assistance of counsel, and effective assistance of counsel is described in the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, which are the legal obligations of all lawyers and judges. And I was explaining to the gentleman that it's the legal responsibility of all lawyers and judges to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust. Because he asked me, who's legally responsible for doing what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust? So that's the question I posed to the internet. Okay, I explained this to a lot of people before, and most people don't believe me. But let's use the internet and the law. I simply put, who's required to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust? Public officials and those in position of trust are legally and ethically. So remember, if they violate the oath, they violate the code of ethics. So that's also an ethics violation. Okay. Public officials and those in positions of trust are legally and ethically required to act in the public interest and maintain the public trust. This includes prioritizing the well-being of community over personal gain and ensuring transparency, accountability in their actions. Here's more detailed explanation. Public officials' duty to serve. Public officials, such as elected representatives and government employees, are entrusted with responsibilities of serving the public and upholding the laws. And if you notice, they like to pick and choose which laws they'll use and which ones they won't. Avoiding conflicts of interest. They must avoid situations where their personal interest could compromise their ability to act impartially and in the public interest. Look up the public interest doctrine, my friends. Know your power. Transparency and accountability. Public officials are expected to be transparent in their decision making and be accountable for their actions, ensuring the public can understand and trust their decisions. There's a lot of lack of trust in our politicians. So hold their feet to the coals, to the fire. Hold them to the oath they took. Remember, violating the oath, it's mandatory. Fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. Just look up penalties for violating the oath. Okay, public trust doctrine. I told you about that before. Read the public trust doctrine. Know your power. Okay, there wouldn't be so much pollution if the public trust doctrine was abided by. Public trust doctrine is a legal principle, that asserts that the government acts as a custodian of certain natural resources for the benefit of the public. This means that the government has a duty to protect these resources, ensure they are available for the public's use and enjoyment. Examples of resources covered by the public trust doctrine include the tide, submerged lands, beds of navigable waters, and it also mentioned, if you read the public trust doctrine and get into details, it also tells you part of the public trust doctrine is the legal system, everybody in politics, doctors, anything and everything medical, the IRS, part of the public trust, they collect tax dollars which are supposed to be used for what's in the public interest. Infrastructure, etc., etc. Maintaining the public trust. Public officials must act in good faith to avoid actions that could damage public trust. That includes being honest, open, being responsive to public concerns, and ensuring that all decisions are made in the best interests of the public. Maintaining the public trust is essential for the smooth functioning of government and the overall well-being of society. Public officials as fiduciaries. What are the obligations of the public trust? The common law public trust doctrine protects sovereign lands such as tide and submerged lands and beds of navigable water for the benefit, use, of enjoyment of the public. These lands are held in the public trust by the state of California for the statewide public and uses for that further the purposes of the trust. Okay, so remember that they are responsible for keeping the quality of that water, air, land pristine. I mean, you are the public. This is your land. It's supposed to be preserved for you. But yet they're selling off public lands, corporations, What are the obligations of a public servant? You shall not use your public office for private gain. You shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any private organization or individual. You shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it for other than authorized activity. What does it mean? What does it mean to be held in a public trust? Public trust is a principle that certain natural and cultural resources are preserved for the public benefit. In essence, it means the public owns the collections and they should be kept available so the public can study them, enjoy them, and learn from them. People, I don't know if you're aware of this, but all these, alphabet agencies, they're part of the public trust. They are there to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust, and they must all abide by the rules, professional conduct, and the Code of Judicial Conduct. See to it that effective assistance counsel exists. Okay, and they're supposed to make sure that it exists in every court, but nobody's doing that. Like I said, you can't have due process without effective assistance of counsel. And it's rare that I met anybody that's lived up to the rules of professional conduct, let alone the Code of Judicial Conduct. And that's just not violating your constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel, a fair trial, and due process. And you can check the 14th Amendment, the due process clause for that, okay? These things must if effective assistance of counsel doesn't exist, neither does due process. And due process is required for anybody and everybody in the country. The Constitution never specified citizen or not, because at the time it was written, everybody was considered an immigrant. Well, the country was run by England at that time. Do public servants have to identify themselves? Still, while not legally obligated to do so, when asked to identify themselves during a non-complaint interaction, police officers often do so anyways as part of their department's policies and practices. What is the accountability of police officers? Public officials and employees shall at all times be accountable to the people and shall discharge their duties with utmost responsibility, integrity, competence, and loyalty, act with patriotism and justice, lead modest lives, and uphold the public interest over personal interest. Okay, public officers. That means police officers as well, okay? They're part of the public trust. What is the code of conduct for public officials? Public officials and employees shall be held accountable to the people at all times, must do their duties with utmost responsibility, integrity, competence, and loyalty, should act with patriotism and justice, lead modest lives, and uphold the public interest over personal interests. People, this is the law, okay, a bunch of laws. And once you crack open anything and you don't understand it, you know what you do? You copy and paste it to your search engine and proceed from there. That's what I always do. I don't know everything when it comes to the law, but I love reading about it. I love finding things out. And it's just, when it comes to learning, I'm insatiable. Commitment to the public interest refers to dedication, a sense of responsibility towards promoting and prioritizing the well-being of the general public rather than serving personal or narrow interests. It involves making decisions and taking actions that consider the collective welfare of society as a whole, which is required by the Constitution. The Constitution requires all public servants to do to serve the needs of the many, not the greed of the few. That's the whole purpose of the Constitution, people. I know when I indiscreetly speak about it to other people, they call me a socialist, a communist. I'm a constitutionalist. And when I read the Constitution, when I read any law, mind you, I read it word for word to the letter as it's supposed to be told, as it's supposed to be understood, so that we all hear and see and say the same thing. It's a requirement in interpreting the law is using the letter of the law. The letter of law strictly requires everything be done word for word to the letter. Look it up, people, the letter of the law. I love that. It's a beautiful thing. It's just that too bad nobody goes by it. You know, I've had plenty of people tell me, in the legal community that they study the Constitution and try to give me the meaning of it, and I told them they can talk all they want as long as they maintain the restrictions of the law. As long as their interpretation fits the requirements of the letter of the law. And nobody ever bothers to explain the Constitution or any law to me after that. What does it mean to maintain the public trust? Public trust is a judicial system, means that people believe the courts are fair, unbiased, and work well. Well, people, you'll find a lot of you that have been through the courts find things that don't seem logical. The simplicity behind what I'm teaching you is, if it seems illogical, if you think it's illogical, then it's illegal. Okay? Because everything must be done when it comes to the law that's in the public interest. In the public interest. The needs of the many. Laws, the only laws that actually can be considered legal are the laws that fit the needs of the many, not the greed of the few. And a lot of lawyers and judges, they just don't care about that. And you'll understand if you read the Rules of Professional Conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct. Try questioning a lawyer or judge about that. They will shut the hell up. They'll get mad at you. I got a death sentence for trying to bring it up in court, demanding my constitutional rights, my civil rights, the Bill of Rights, as a United States citizen, my birthrights. As long as you take the rules and the codes with you before you ever stand in front of a judge or talk to a lawyer, that's the only way you'll get a fair trial, unless you can afford to become an attorney yourself. Now, maybe now you understand why the education system is so expensive. They're doing their best to keep people like us, as I've been told in my younger days, the peasants, and before that, before the middle class, there was only two classes, the wealthy and the peasants. That was in the Gilded Age. That's what caused the Great Depression. Okay, and the New Deal changed that. And that's when the New Deal gave us, as a country, the middle class. FDR was pro-union. Unions gave you the middle class. And I've always believed, if a union gave us the birth of our nation, unions in the workplace can unite the people. Imagine if everybody made a decent living wage. They're in a higher tax bracket. They got to pay more taxes. Wouldn't have to raise the tax rate on that because you have everybody working, everybody making good money, decent money, livable wages, and there'll be less need for welfare, public welfare. There's no need for corporate welfare. That's totally illegal. That's not in the public interest. That's not how we maintain the public trust, okay? Pretty easy to understand if you use the simplicity of the law. So I'm showing you the laws. Okay, I can't teach you if you won't read it. That's why I spend a lot of time making videos. I used to just post the laws and nobody would read it. But people like it when I go over it with them. And thank you. Thank you. And not on my behalf, but on behalf of we the people. It's a we the people thing. You know, when it comes to the Constitution, you know, the law of the land, the supreme law of laws that no state can overwrite. Any law written repugnant to the U.S. Constitution and is null and void, look it up. It's on the internet. Who owns a public trust? The public is considered the owner of the resources, and the government protects and maintains these resources for the public's use. See, right there, public trust doctrine. Okay, so I want you to know what's yours, people, okay? You know, it's bad enough people in probate court, conservatorship, guardianship are getting ripped off left and right because they don't know the legal obligations of all lawyers and judges, you know, and as well as politicians, you know. If you use all this information, though, for the first time in our country, there will be a separation of powers. The cops have to answer, are you a cop? As you can probably surmise by now, law enforcement have no legal duty to tell the truth when asked if they are, in fact, the law. Unfortunately, most people erroneously believe that police officers must tell you who they are if asked, and thus find themselves in a situation much like badgers. And that's not in the public interest. That's not how we maintain the public trust. Does a cop have to give you their badge number? No federal or state law requires cops in California to identify themselves as police officers to the public, even if someone asks them directly. This is also true of police officers who work undercover. Still, some cities mandate that cops must identify themselves in a public setting. Undercover, I could understand. But when you're in a public setting and you're in uniform and you refuse to, you know, give name, badge number, whatever, that's ridiculous. And then demanding you shut off the body cams, the dash cams. You know, you have the leisure of turning them off and on at will. No, they should be maintained on at all times. Do public servants take an oath? They all do. Government code. Unless otherwise provided, before any officer enters on the duties of his office, he shall take and subscribe to the oath of affirmation set forth in Section 3, Article 20 of the Constitution of California, which is basically a statement of every state. It's also in the U.S. Constitution, so, you know, they say they don't have it, you can still use the U.S. Constitution because that still counts. What is Article 11? Article 11 depends on the context, refers to different things, generally relates to the right of freedom of expression, assembly, and association as a right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Most specifically, can also refer to Article 11 of the U.S. Constitution, which deals with states' immunity from lawsuits from citizens or other states or foreign individuals. Additionally, can be used in context of the European Union to refer to Article 11 cities which are urban areas that receive support from substantial development projects. How does Here's more of a detailed breakdown. Freedom of expression, assembly, and association. Article 11 and various international documents like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the European Convention of Human Rights, the European Union Center of Fundamental Rights, protection of freedom of opinion, the right to receive and important information, the right to peaceful assembly and association. Article 11 of the U.S. Constitution, this amendment limits the power of the federal courts by stating that they cannot hear suits against states by citizens of another state or by foreign individuals. Article 11 cites in the context of European Union, this term refers to urban areas that are eligible to receive funding from European Regional Development Fund for substantial urban developments. Okay, what is the example of conduct of prejudicial to the best interest of the service? What are 5 codes of conduct? What is conflict of interest? Government employees? That happens a lot. Okay, conflict of interest. Government occurs when public officials' personal interests could compromise their ability to act impartially in their official capacity, potentially leading to biased decision-making that favors their private interest over the public good. This occurs in various forms, including financial interest, relationships with parties involved in government matters, or the appearance of impropriety. Okay, this is sticking for some reason. Key concepts. Okay. Key concepts: financial interest, a direct or predictable financial impact on the employees, their spouses, minor children, or certain other persons, organizations. Personal relationship, close relationship with the party involved in the matter, relationship that could be perceived as influencing decision-making. Impartiality, the ability to act without bias or favoritism, ensuring that all parties are treated fairly. The public interest is served, and the public interest is served. Public trust, maintaining the public's faith in the integrity of government, which is undermined when the conflict of interest raises concerns about impartiality. Okay, appearance of improper influence, a government employee being seen in a way that suggests they are taking a bribe or engaging in other unethical behavior. All they have to do is give the appearance that's violating the oath, and violating the oath is fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. Prevention of mitigation, reporting financial interest, public officials and employees in designated position are often required to report their financial interest to help identify potential conflicts. And it's also in the basic obligations of public service. People, look that up, the basic obligations of public service, and it tells you anybody in service is considered public property. Okay, so anything in their personal life, their financial life, and their public life, as a public official, they're open books, but you'll have to read the basic obligations of public service to understand that. Recusal, disqualifying oneself from participating in a manner in which a conflict of interest exists. And how often does that happen? I've seen a lot of complaints about the U.S. Supreme Court with conflicts of interest, but it's just not them, it's every court, people, no matter what court you go into. Okay, this is sticking. Ethics training, legal framework, prohibits government employees from participating in matters that have a direct and predictable financial impact. Oh man, I hate when those come up. Interests, predictable financial impact on their interest or interests of certain related individuals. State and local laws. Many states and localities have their own laws and regulations addressing conflicts of interest, often with specific requirements for reporting and recusal. So remember, and if they put anything in that conflicts with the U.S. Constitution, then it's null and void. In essence, the goal is to ensure that government officials prioritize the public interest over their private interest and maintain the public confidence in the integrity of government decision-making and addressing potential conflict of interest proactively. Okay, people, so there's a lot you can learn, and it'd take too long to go over everything with you. So I asked a simple question: who's required to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust? Look up the public interest doctrine, the public trust doctrine, and it even says in the preamble, the rules of professional conduct. Every lawyer and judge out there is required to do what's in the public interest and maintain the public trust. Okay? So I'm just doing my best to try to make it easy for you to understand, because when I watch, and it doesn't matter what media it is, what news media it is, when they have their political analysts, their legal analysts, nobody ever actually explains to you the public interest and the public trust. And I'm doing my best to give you that explanation. Okay, but it's also on the internet. That's where I read about a lot of this stuff years ago. And thankfully, everything I've ever read about's on the internet. And I've been using these laws for a long time, and I always get ignored. You know, file ARDC. Now it's called the Illinois Judicial Inquiry Board. You know, the Attorney General, DOJ, the FBI. You know, and caused me to move around a lot. But I'm tired of hiding. I'm too old. I'm handicapped. And I'm on my own. So if they're going to come after anybody, at least it's only me. But, you know, I made a promise to the Almighty. If He helped me make it through the day, I wouldn't stop what I was doing. That's why I was nearly deprived of my life. Trying to get everybody in public service to live up to the oath, to do what's in the public service, to do what's required of public service, to do what's in the public interest, and maintain the public trust. You know, I go back a long way with these people. Politicians, lawyers, judges, public servants. What they took from me, they took from we. What they took from one, they took from all. And I've been doing my best to get it back. I need your help. The only thing I need you to do is look up all these laws and use them. Use them all. No mercy. I was telling a gentleman he wanted to water down, not make it so compelling and so extensive, because he was mentioning public interest, the public trust, violating the oath, in the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, reporting misconduct is mandatory. Failure to report misconduct is misconduct, and nobody reports misconduct, so everybody's guilty of misconduct. They conspired to deprive you your constitutional right of a quick and speedy trial, which had just limitations. They denied you your right to due process because they failed to give you a fair trial, because in the requirements of effective assistance of counsel, one must abide by the rules and the codes. There's supposed to be zero tolerance. And when it comes to the rules and the codes, you violate one rule, you violate multiple rules. It's impossible to violate just one rule. And when you violate the rules of professional conduct, the code of judicial conduct is violated. And you can't just violate one code without violating multiple codes. It's time to get zero tolerance when it comes to violating the oath. Hold them to the oath they took. That's what I need you to do. I don't care if you vote red or blue. Call your favorite politician and remind them of the oath they took and the consequences of the failure to abide by that oath. When they took that oath, they did not take an oath to a political party. They did not take an oath to a politician. And they definitely didn't take an oath to Wall Street. But somehow nobody's holding them to that oath. They took an oath to we the people. They took an oath to serve the public interest. They took an oath to maintain the public trust. And that's not happening. All you got to do is look up their oath, the oath of public service, the oath of office, and then look up violating the oath. You know, the only thing I can teach you is to help you teach yourself. Knowledge isn't given, it's taken. Okay, you got to take what you can get. Back in my day, all I had was a Dewey Decimal System. Today, you have the World Wide Web. Every book ever written is there. And I strongly suggest, if you ever expect to see, to get your constitutional rights, your civil rights, to see to it that you have your Bill of Rights, your birthrights as a United States citizen. Is demanded. It's not a given. It's not a given. These are your rights and they're not given to you. You have to go in court and demand them. Next time you go to court, take a copy of the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rules of Professional Conduct, and make sure the judge and those lawyers live up to their legal obligations prescribed in the rules and the codes. Remind them failure to live up to that requires fines, removal from public service, and incarceration.
Why would you answer me?